It's the only one of the 7 wonders of the world that is still standing today. 5 million tons of stone, stacked 146 meters high, 4,500 years ago.
The pyramids of Egypt are some of the most iconic structures in the world. They're also some of the most mysterious. For centuries, people have been trying to understand how they were built and what they mean. One of the most intriguing aspects of the pyramids is the size of the stones. These stones are incredibly large and heavy, and they were placed in very conspicuous locations. What are these stones saying? What message are they trying to convey? In this video, we'll take a closer look at the largest pyramid stones. Each of the more than 1 million stone blocks that makes up the Great Pyramid of Giza has a unique narrative to share. It's difficult to imagine the amount of labor necessary for such a feat, but each enormous block that was cut and placed must have been a serious job for the employees who did it. Although every stone in the pyramid is a success, there are a few that stand out, inspiring awe at the ability and daring of the ancient Egyptians to explore how far they could push their powers. What use do these large blocks serve if the pyramid were left vacant and then rapidly sealed after a pharaoh was buried there? These inquiries get right to the core of what makes the enormous pyramid so enigmatic. Uncertainty surrounds whether or not the builders believed the so-called relieving chambers above a king's chamber would relieve any weight, but regular-sized blocks were frequently used, giving us confidence that they did not believe gigantic lintels were required to protect the passages of the pyramids. The uncovered entry to the Pyramid of the Medium is one of the early illustrations that helps shape our knowledge of this form. Except for the outermost block, which is horizontally oriented and so corresponds to the normal height of a course of casing stones, the stones above its descending corridor are all vertically oriented. If the pyramid entrance were completely sealed, this design and the offset door jambs may be seen as an attempt to hide its position. I've always believed that a secrecy defense would appear absurd to anyone building a pyramid due to the enormous amount of time and labor required. But perhaps concealment was still a possibility with the early pyramids. If keeping the entrance a secret for one pyramid was difficult, nobody would undoubtedly think it was conceivable for later pyramids that consistently positioned the entrance in the same spot, almost in the middle of the north side. Confining pyramid entrances to a similar location makes secrecy and defense quite impossible, because knowledge will quickly become commonplace for Egyptians in that pyramid. This knowledge would never entirely be forgotten because it is so straightforward to recall. Additionally, locating the entrance to just one pyramid, even just a little satellite pyramid, gives you the knowledge necessary to find the entry to every other pyramid. Perhaps for this reason, the entry site of the next pyramid, now known as the Bent Pyramid, was not at all concealed. Once more, this point of entrance is fairly noticeable as it is located on the north side and barely 11 meters above the desert floor. The highest course I've seen on the Bent Pyramids, the brickwork that spans the top of the entryway. In addition, the lintel above the doorway itself could be an even higher block, as expert Keith Hamilton noted. The massive lintel appears to have sagged a little on its route, although it may have been carved this way on purpose to be a little taller than the other stones on its journey. The nearby stones' downward angles were extremely symmetrical, indicating that this design was intended to make room for a bigger stone. A large lintel at the entrance does not improve the structure of a pyramid, since the casing stones only support a modest amount of weight. This would imply the enormous lintel at the Bent Pyramid was placed to be visually impressive, rather than overbuilding as a precautionary measure. The upper west entrance of the Bent Pyramids also spanned by a lintel and a tall course of masonry, but not quite as dramatically as the lower entrance. This entrance was still perfectly sealed in 1837, and despite its high elevation, John Perring was able to spot it from the desert floor. Unfortunately, subsequent pyramids have had most or all of their casing stones removed, so we can no longer evaluate how their entrances would have originally appeared and whether or not they were spanned with oversized lintels. In contrast to the other stones that make up the main body of the pyramid, the descending corridor of the next pyramid, now known as the Red Pyramid, did have huge stones covering it. The larger size of these stones is presumably for structural stability because their height would not have been visible, but when we descend onto the chambers of the Red Pyramid, things truly start to become intriguing. A short horizontal passageway leads to a towering corbelled chamber, and a second almost similar chamber is reached by another short horizontal passageway. A massive lintel that is 2 courses of masonry high is positioned over each passageway that leads to one of these rooms. All of these stones have quantifiable dimensions that are around 3 meters broad, 2.2 meters tall, and close to 1 meter deep. It's uncertain how much stone is concealed behind the tunnel's wall, but a safe minimum is 2 cubits or around 1 meter. If the passage is centered beneath each lintel stone, however, the hidden width might increase to more than 2 meters. The weight of each stone is thus estimated to be between 26 and 32 imperial tons using those figures. Notably, neither the passage leading to the higher room, which is typically thought to be the burial chamber, nor the upper chamber itself have an enormous lintel. A key observation is that oversized lintels always follow the same priority for their dimensions. Their width is the longest side, followed by height, and last, thickness. I find it interesting that the thickness of these stones is quite modest, no greater than any other common stone you would find inside a pyramid. The satellite pyramid next to the bent pyramid contains another enormous lintel, and it's unclear if this little pyramid was constructed before, concurrently with, or after the Red Pyramid. Evaluating the early evolution of the bigger lintels is challenging since the outer portion of the medium pyramid could have been built after these 2 pyramids. An enormous lintel that spans the chamber's south wall as well as its entrance may be seen in this early satellite pyramid. The 2 courses of stone above it also contain blocks that span the full chain chamber wall, and it's over 3 courses of masonry tall. This enormous lintel is 2.5 meters broad, but if its 2 cubits are buried on each side, the stone's probably closer to 4.5 meters wide. However, as can be seen on the tapering cut where the ascending route goes to the chamber, this lintel is only around 70 centimeters deep. It can only be a deliberate design to create a stone with such unbalanced dimensions. To have it a startlingly huge face exposed on the chamber's north wall, it appears as though the blocks sacrifice thickness. However, above them, when the ceiling narrows, seams start to show. The 2 stones above this block are likewise excessively broad to cross the wall. It would have been much easier to make the upper courses as single blocks because they don't need to be as wide, but this choice was not taken. Perhaps the highest courses of stone were less visible in antiquity when only torchlight was available, and thus the mason's redesign up high would not be as easily appreciated. Next, we come to the Great Pyramid, where an oversized lintel is seen above the descending corridor. The key question is, did the Great Pyramid mimic Bent Pyramid by using a huge casing and stone lintel over its entrance, or was the lintel a subdued size to maybe hide the site of entry? Originally, course 19 was the Great Pyramid's entry passageway, probably equal to the height of the stone there. Above course 19, 2 stone courses are noticeably too short for their height. Up to course 78, the shortest courses we encounter are all longer than that. The short core forces of 20 and 21 at the Great Pyramid may be integrated into a single tall course above its entrance if we read the bending pyramid's entrance design as needing a tall lintel without having to make the entire course of masonry the same height. Either so, or the entry lintel of the Great Pyramid was among the smallest found in the ancient kingdom. On the portcullis side, we discover 2 more massive lintels at the king's room entry and another across the entrance to the chamber itself. This block, which has vertical grooves, serves as a functional stone, and its added height was likely added to prevent joints from obstructing the passage of ropes through them. The king's chamber lintel is truly one of the masterpieces of the 4th dynasty, a granite monolith 2.56 meters tall, 1.34 meters deep, and no less than 3.11 meters wide. If we add 2 cubits of stone hidden in the wall, we get over 40 tons of weight. But if the block is centered over the passage image, then it is very close to 50 tons. Unlike many other large lintels, this block has never cracked and remains in pristine condition. This observation that oversized stones are prone to breakage is critical to ask about what the ancient Egyptians were trying to accomplish with them. In a matter that, at the time, could have seemed counterintuitive, pyramids with larger stones fracture more frequently than those with smaller ones. This is because a pyramid sinks into its base. Large stone's joints are farther apart and unable to accommodate the entire movement. Large cracks can be seen in the lintels of the Red Pyramid, and considerable damage was done. Steel rods were drilled into the pyramids, according to engineer Peter James, to avoid a possible collapse, as stated in his book Saving the Pyramids. We might be able to deduce how the ancient pyramids regarded these lintels if we knew when the damage to them happened. Jean-Pierre Houdin was able to simulate that the fractures in the king's chamber ceiling arose during building to solve problems related to his war activities. I'm not sure if there's enough data to conduct a comparable analysis for the Red Pyramid, but it would be beneficial research. However, several of the flat ceiling beams of the room cracked, even if the lintel of the king's chamber never did. This could have led the ancient Egyptians to build their future pyramids with solely subterranean chambers. However, despite their dramatic shrinkage after the 4th dynasty, in front of their burial chambers, the lintels grew rapidly. Pharaohs Shepseskef and Uzarkaf used lintels to cover the full eastern wall of their burial chambers, emulating the Giza pyramids. Unfortunately, the Abu Sir pyramids were so thoroughly looted that we are unable to assess their lintels. Instead, we must wait until the Pyramid of Unas to have our next point of comparison. The earliest pyramid with inside hieroglyphs known as the Pyramid Writings belonged to Unas, the final ruler of the 5th dynasty. He and his descendants would build progressively larger lintels between the antechamber and the burial chamber until the end of the 6th dynasty. These lintels grew to quite extraordinary sizes and would act as canvases for the inscriptions engraved on them. The lintel at Pepi, the first burial chamber, weighed over 70 tons, making it one of the largest blocks included in any pyramid. But in all the pyramids after the Great Pyramid, these oversized blocks were protected with a chevron ceiling above them, meaning they were not required to support the weight of the pyramid. Also, because the chambers are built into the bedrock below the pyramid, no subsidence could occur, which might cause them to crack. So we know the builders became aware that oversized lintels were prone to damage, but how do we use that knowledge to evaluate their purpose before the time of pyramids with texts? The 3 Queen Pyramids, which are located near the Great Pyramid, provide more instances, but they regrettably raise more problems than they do answers. We can find rather large lintels guarding their pathways inside the constructions, although the North and Center Pyramids' casing stones are absent at the entrances. The casing stones around the entrance of the southernmost Queen's Pyramid, however, are still there, and the lintel above the entryway is of normal height. It's really difficult to say if we can compare a Queen's Pyramid to the Great Pyramid when determining why such oversized lintels were used, but I always find myself coming back to the bent pyramid's entrance when trying to come up with answers to what the ancient Egyptians were communicating with these large stones. This entrance, placed much lower to the ground than the other Shnefu pyramids, seems designed to call attention to itself. It's as if the large lintel is representative of the pyramid, one more example of the power of the pharaoh to build on a gigantic scale. Whatever they're saying, the largest pyramid stones are a reminder of the power and mystery of the ancient world. They're a reminder that there's still so much we don't know about our past. And they're a reminder that, even in the modern world, there are still things that can amaze and awe us. Hey, that's it for now, but please don't forget to subscribe to our channel.